Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coach Connect Live. So glad that you're here today with us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Drop it in the chat so that we can see where everyone is coming in from today. My name is Eloise Aone. I am the director of Coach Connect at the Muse and at Fairygodboss. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by Matt Ford, one of our longtime coaches. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, just for those of you who don't know, what is Coach Connect? Really quickly, Coach Connect is the place you can come to on the Muse or Fairygodboss to find a career coach to help you take that next step in your career. So, whether you are actively looking for a new job or thinking about shifting a career, or whether you're looking to grow internally, one of our coaches can work with you to help strategize, focus, plan for those next steps, and really feel like you're driving your career forward. So, check it out today. And also, of course, today we'll be dropping a little code in the chat for you to use as a discount to book a service with Matt. So stick around for that. Today's topic is networking on LinkedIn to land a job. So most coaches I will talk to, career coaches out there, will tell you that networking might be the best thing you can do for your career. And at the same time, we have this huge phobia, blockage, difficulty doing it, whether we are in that job search or just growing and making connections for ourselves. So it's a really important topic. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Matt in to talk about this is that Matt makes it really easy. Matt creates a really wonderful structure for us to use. And so I'm really looking forward to him walking us through how he coaches his clients in successfully networking in a way that works for them. So looking forward to jumping into that. But before, Matt, I'd love to give you the opportunity to say hello to our audience today. And everyone is coming in. I can see everyone. We have Utah, we have California, we have Colorado, Delaware, New York, all places, people from all over the place, which is wonderful. Would you just say hi to everyone and introduce yourself? Give us a little taste of what you do as a career coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at this for about 10 years. Let me move on to the slide here. I actually used to work for the Muse full time, getting companies onto the platform, and then I joined the Connect platform in 2016. My background, I've been doing this for a better part of 10 years. I also have some more formal training in this up at Cornell. And I've worked with, I'm going to guess, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 folks over the course of my coaching career. I love networking strategy. It's also a big piece of the job search strategy. I think they're difficult to pluck apart. I love negotiating offers with people. I would say I go a little bit off the Muse script on that one. We've gotten some pretty amazing outcomes. And then I really love doing interview preparation as well. And I'll say that this is all on top of what I'll call the standard fare of resume, LinkedIn, that kind of work, which you kind of need to have all of that in place to start doing your networking strategy. Because if someone says, send me a resume, you got to do it. And then areas of expertise, I worked with a lot of career changers, early and mid-career. Worked with a lot of folks looking for remote work specifically. That's become a big thing in the last couple of years. Pretty well schooled in the language of tech, media, telecom, but candidly, there's very little that I don't feel comfortable with after the time that I've put in.
Yeah, amazing. So Matt has a breadth of knowledge beyond networking, of course. So please feel free to plop your questions in the chat if you have them as we're talking today, specifically about networking, of course. But if there are things beyond that that you're curious about and we have time to answer those questions, feel free to put those in there as we go, and we'll try to get to as many as possible after Matt walks us through his approach. So Matt, let's jump in. When you're working with your clients and networking is a really important part of a job search or part of their career growth. Where do you start with them?
Yeah, so I mean, every client's going to have a different experience based on what they're looking to do, where they're coming from. But I would say in terms of the bones of this, my experience has been pretty successful with the technique that I'm going to run you all through today. Feel free to do screen grabs or whatever. I think we might also be doing an article on this in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. And I'll also put out there that I fairly have a degree of expertise in this, but there are going to be a lot of ways to approach this. We'll put a slide up later, but please feel free to put any tips, tricks, anything that you'd like us to share with the rest of the audience in the chat. And I think with that, should we get going?
Let's do it. Let's jump in. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So first things first is like, why LinkedIn, and what are the goals of LinkedIn? So LinkedIn itself, it's the largest professional community. I will say that there are some, sales specific, engineering specific communities where people will build professional profiles. This would apply to those as well. It's a replacement for, I'm going to say, a classic approach of knocking on doors, sliding resumes under doors of companies, that kind of thing. And the driving thing here as well is you don't want to slide into someone's DMs on Instagram on a professional topic. That's something that belongs on LinkedIn. People have opted in for that. I've been involved in, I'm going to guess, 50,000 plus, LinkedIn connections being created. I've made several thousand myself in a networking context. Not once have I had someone come back and say, "This was so rude. How dare you reach out to me?" And so your goals, three things, right? Build a network. Network itself is what's valuable here. I know a lot of people see networking and they think transactional, but if you're building a network, then that's a group that's going to be able to support you and you support them through the future. If you just network for a job and you don't land it, you're back at square one. The other thing is, this is your chance to interview a company. So once you're actually in an interview process with them, you kind of have to be on your best behavior, but this is your opportunity to ask questions that are a little bit more direct and give you a better sense for the culture, so that when you actually land there and start your job, you're in good shape. And then finally, the no-brainer one is creating advocates. So someone who can generate you a referral link or forward your resume along or pound their fist on the table when resumes are being reviewed. That's a pretty key piece of this. So that's like why LinkedIn and what the goals are overall. So as I mentioned at the top, like every client's going to have a different experience because every client's different, but some version of this is usually going to apply to 90% of people. So first adding structure, then conducting outreach, having the actual meeting, and then I've got a little bonus in here if we have time about picking between opportunities and doing prioritization. Okay, so first things first, structure. If you add some structure to your job search, it really helps to keep things moving forward. I like to use an Excel sheet or Google sheet, and you can prioritize companies, whatever works for you, but the company, priority, your level of interest in it, and then you're going to have one of these lines for each person you've reached out to. And so that's going to allow you to track who you've reached out to and follow up, which is key. More on that in a bit. So a couple things that help here. First, this is working to create new connections. No big surprise there. The next is I like to do these in batches so you can focus on 5, 10, 15 companies rather than scattering your efforts across a ton of companies or a ton of industries. If you can keep structured and keep fairly tight to your goal, that's going to help. And then job hunting in general is just kind of a brutal experience because there's really only one true joyous moment, which is when you actually land the job, at which point it's over. So I think milestone goals are really important for keeping upbeat, keeping momentum up, and avoiding that burnout or potential mental health issues. So if you can say, I'm going to find 25 people to reach out to this week, you are fully in control of that goal. And so you do that yourself. Nobody's blocking you from it. Not dependent on the whims of the people you're reaching out to. It's something that you have full ownership of and can celebrate every week.
I love that. I think Matt, if I may jump in, just breaking down those things that you can control. So many job seekers, we're sending out resumes, we're sending out job applications, and then it's just kind of like you wait. You're in this waiting game, and in fact, the act of actively networking and putting yourself out there and having these smaller goals can really actually fill that space in an active way that can be incredibly empowering. So I love the way you frame that, and creating those smaller milestones that you control is just a wonderful way to think about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've heard it framed before as it's kind of the difference between like putting out crab pots where there's nothing to do once you've done that versus like going hunting where you have a lot more agency of what you're doing. So let's keep moving here. So conducting the actual outreach. So who you reach out to is a cause of a lot of consternation for my clients. Three things that I'm really looking for. The first is relevance, right? If you're looking for a marketing role, try to talk to someone in marketing, or HR would be fine too. If you're looking for a sales role, I probably wouldn't reach out to someone totally random who's in like a deep engineering role. The second would be connectivity. If their LinkedIn looks like my LinkedIn, yeah, they probably check it. If it's, no photo, no cover page, one job for 45 years, no educate, just bare bones, you can reach out to that person, but the odds of them responding are like vanishingly small. And then finally would be the proximity. So like, do you have any way to get a connection there? Did they go to the same school as you? Did you both live in, I don't know, the Midwest for a while? Do you both like to ski, right? I played rugby, so I often meet people online who, they've got some connection to rugby on their LinkedIn, and that's a much more successful rate of reply for me than just, screaming into the void. So you can reach out to folks who don't meet at least one or two of these, but I wouldn't count them towards your weekly target. You want to make sure you're reaching out to fairly high quality folks.
Yeah, this makes total sense, right? Relevance, connectivity, proximity. The proximity, I think, is really important too, because especially if you're younger in your career and you don't have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and people generally want to talk about things. If they're going to put it on their LinkedIn, they're probably willing to talk about it, right? Like the rugby example, right, Matt? Like if somebody has on their LinkedIn that they enjoy playing or watching rugby, as an example, it probably is something they want to talk about. So connecting with those things creates an immediate personal connection that can be much easier to pull from.
Yep. And this is probably a good time to mention that this is all just a ratios game, right? It's you reach out to 25 people, you might get responses from 2, right? And you might actually have a meeting with 1. So anything you can do to kind of make those ratios look better, or feel better is important. And so finding, or doing your best to find the highest quality people to reach out to is key.
Nice. So just to make this really concrete. So I have my spreadsheet that I've built, and I say to myself, okay, my targets are I want to reach out to 20 or 25 people within a certain amount of time. Then I would have this list, right? Relevance, connectivity, and proximity as my guiding posts for who to look for and who qualify. How would you actually start searching for people using these guideposts?
Yeah, so when you're actually on like the LinkedIn search page, they have all sorts of filters on there. And
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn will let you look at, don't quote me, but I think about 100 profiles a month before you have to like buy a service. It's $30 or $40 a month, and it lets you look at unlimited people and send connection requests to unlimited people. That's probably going to be necessary for most people. People on LinkedIn, and that is where you can start to look for some of the more tangible things in here, companies you've worked for, schools you've attended, and that kind of thing. For the rest, you might set those filters and then also search for the word rugby.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a bunch of options with the, it's a fairly sort of Google-esque search capability within LinkedIn.
Yeah, nice. And I imagine it takes a little bit of playing around and figuring out at the beginning, but once you have your kind of a system in place that works for you and you can shift things slightly, it allows for those searches to happen fairly quickly. In fact, yeah, great. Thank you.
There's also great content on both the Muse and Fairygodboss about using LinkedIn in that capacity. So check those out before you, get frustrated. So once you've actually found someone, that first note is another big stress point. So good preparation is key here, right? Send your connection request, not in mail. Nothing useful ever really comes from in mail. So at least, I should speak for myself here. I default to that being garbage and spam. What you should do is send your connection request. It's character limited, so you got to keep it tight, but polite introduction. And then here's the key is like you want a very specific request for someone's expertise. If someone sends me something that's like, hey, I'm interested in learning more about IBM. It's like, okay, like me too. There are 300,000 people in 200 countries. I have no clue what they're all doing. But if someone has something that's much more specific to me, jobs that I had in the past, or has a very specific question that, I or maybe a dozen people in the country could answer, I usually pick that one up. Um, and so if you can do 2 minutes of research and try to put something together that is specific to the person that you're trying to engage, and then specific next steps. So you can see across the bottom here, 15 to 20-minute chat next week, just nice and easy. I'm going to leave this here for a
Mhm.
couple seconds so you can screenshot it. But um, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I love this, right? That like making it feel like it's super intentional that the person that you're emailing or messaging, I should say, is really the person you want to talk to. That it couldn't be like my colleague at the Muse answering the question. If it really feels like someone's reaching out to me and saying like, "Hey, Eloise, I'm really curious about this specific thing that you've done, or your thoughts on this specific thing given your role," it feels much more personal and targeted, and that of course I'm willing to put in the time because few other people could. And I like that's an approach that you take here. The specific next steps too, right? Making it incredibly tangible, like what those next steps should look like and can look like, really helps things move along more quickly.
Yep. Speaking of moving along quickly, so conducting outreach, as you're making progress to your target list, you got to do follow-ups. So I get most of the responses on the second pass, and I get more responses on pass 3 than pass 1. So you do need to follow up, and that's one of the reasons we use the tracker from a couple slides back. Follow up, simple. Try not to make them feel bad. Just give
Yeah.
fresh times or restate the original message. I find like the more formal you make it, the more it feels like maybe you're just selling them something. So something well written and articulate but casual is where I like to be on that. I'm sure there's
Hmm.
a range of things that have worked for different people here, though. And then once they agree, just make this super, super easy for them. Calendar invite, call their cell phone. If someone has to like go into their email for something that's not on their calendar, find the Zoom link, reinstall Zoom, it's not going to happen. So just call them. That's your best chance of actually having the conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. uh, Path of least resistance, right? I always think of water coming down a mountain. It's like it's not going to go up and around and loop around and do all the difficult stuff. It's just going to go as quickly down as possible. So creating that process for the other person is going to be the most successful here for sure.
Yeah. And this person's helping you, right? They should not have to jump through hoops to help you.
Hmm.
So running a call, same concept, right? Make it very easy for them. I generally advise people to do more research than the time the call is scheduled for. You don't want to be asking questions like, "What are your products?" or like, "Where is your office?" Those are things that are easily found online. And if you engage someone with a really specific question, then ask them stupid questions, they're gonna form a negative opinion of you,
Disengage.
or they're
Hmm.
likely
Hmm.
to. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I would make yourself an agenda. You could see a sample on the right here. And then you're responsible for making this call happen, right? You don't want to get on and be like, "So what do you want to talk about?" Um, they should get to talk about themselves, their experiences with the company. I love asking people questions like, "Can you tell me a time when you've seen the firm's values on display?" Or, "What's
Mm.
one of your fondest memories?" Or um, at the company. Or, if you were king for a day, what would you change about the company? Sort of
Mm.
gets into the, what's the whole experience here, without being like, "Tell me the terrible stuff." So you've got a lot of options in there as well. And then coming out of that, if the call's going well, you can see it bottom right here, and we're go to the next page for more of it. But you want to have some sort of outcome or ask by the end. So a couple options. First, I call it daisy chaining. That's if you talk to me and I mention something my colleague is doing, ask to talk to my colleague, right? More is more. A referral link, right? A lot of companies offer referral bonuses to their employees. I wouldn't like get aggressively into that, but you should feel free to ask them to refer you, because it's very possibly in their best interest to do so. I have found doing this for 10 years that a lot of most people are good people, and they will do this because they're good people and you ask nicely. But then having that additional incentive in place, I think at the very least makes my clients less uncomfortable doing some of the outreach. A forwarded email is always great. If someone says, hey, yeah, can you send me your resume in an email? I'll send it over to the hiring manager. This is why it's very important to have your ducks in a row with your resume and your LinkedIn profile before you start this process, so that you're not
Hmm.
waiting 4 weeks to send someone an email. They're going to be like, I don't remember you at all.
Has to be
And then
immediate for
finally,
sure.
yep. And then finally, like if that just doesn't feel right, if the call wasn't a great fit, at least now you know that, right? The person still helped you understand that maybe you're not a great fit with this company, or maybe they're not hiring right now. Try to be appreciative. Make sure you send a thank you email after the call. Um, that person took time out of their day to help you, and that should be acknowledged.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right.
I love this. I love this. Screenshot this, you guys. This is I find that this slide is so important because it really helps you kind of have that purpose, that reason for getting on a call. Especially if you're trying to network with a bunch of people and you're really trying to make connections, you kind of lose yourself. You can lose yourself in it. But if you have a really specific thing that you want out of the call, it really helps the call have that forward movement, right? And feel like you're going somewhere with it. So this is great, and I love the daisy chain one because I think that can actually be some of the most impactful things, right? Keep growing that network, talk to more
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
And to me, if you talk to one person on one day, right, like maybe they had a fight with their partner that morning, or maybe they just got a raise and a bonus, right? There's going to be a
Yeah.
broad spectrum of how they're feeling about their day and their life and their company. But,
Yeah.
as you get more data points, you start to get a better picture.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, this is the sort of where the networking part ends. Now you're in like job application, which is a topic for a different time. But, if I was to leave sort of one thought on this as a process, it is a process that you create and you trust, right? You build it,
Hmm.
you modify it as you need to, but the important thing is that you're doing it. So if you're not putting yourself out there and you're not having these conversations, you're not getting the best opportunities. Um, I always tell people, if there are 200 applications for a job on LinkedIn, which is not a crazy number, um, they're going to probably wind up picking the person who is like overqualified for that, but needs a job right now or something along those lines. So if you have the time and you can be intentional, do this. Try to find a job where you like barely squeak in. That's going to be probably at least the most senior or highly compensated or challenging role that you're going to be able to get, versus just applying into the blind. There's very little agency, very little control of your own destiny when you do that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's the two big things here too that come to mind for me are number one, as we said at the beginning, actively networking puts you in a place of being in control of a process much more than if you don't do it. And the job search specifically can be a time where we feel a little bit out of control. So there's that piece, and also, it's really true that as Matt, you were alluding to, that you have a much better chance of landing an opportunity if somebody has put in a good word for you, or if you have connections within the organization, or choosing the right organization if you actually get to talk to people who are in it and know, have a better understanding of whether you're going to thrive within it. So pretty much only benefits. The only downside is that you're not always successful, right, Matt? It's like, as you said, you could reach out to 25 people and only one person answers. But that if you know that those are the rules of the game, then it's okay. That's just part of the game that you're playing, right?
Yeah. I talk to people all the time who are like, well, I reached out to 5 people and nobody responded, so I guess I'm, unhireable. It's like, no, keep
No,
it
yeah,
rolling.
yeah.
Let's put a little structure in, and then that typically winds up with the result that you want. And I'll put in as
Hmm.
well here that like you'll notice in here there's zero expectation that you're starting anywhere but at zero, right? So this can be done by anyone who can sign up for a free LinkedIn account. You can do this, right? Um, it is approachable, it's attainable. It's maybe not easy, but it is remarkably simple.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I love it. Matt, we have a few questions that have come in. This was everything that you had on your slides, right? Are we done
I
with the
have one
process here?
more. I'll put it up here. This
Great,
is
let's
the
see it.
little bonus. Like if you can pick between opportunities, that's a really nice problem to have. But this framework also helps, be like, do I want to be in account management? Do I want to be in sales? You've got various topics. You can weight them. You can be quantitative. You can be qualitative. And this should be fully customized to you. But, putting something together like this that helps you decide where to prioritize your efforts or to spend the next however many years of your career. Um, you can probably tell I like to be organized with these things. This is a very valuable tool for that.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
then the only other thing I had on here was, if you have any tips for networking with LinkedIn, please put them in the chat. We'll highlight a few, and then stay tuned for more content from the Muse and Fairygodboss as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Matt. Some questions that came in that I'd love to hit upon quickly. Helene asks, so if you're not using InMail, then we should connect and then use their personal email listed on their profile?
Not everyone's going to have, yes, not everyone's going to have that listed on their profile. So you may ask, and I've never had anyone respond poorly to saying, let me send you a calendar invite. What's the best email for that?
Mhm.
Most people who you would want to network with are going to be managing their calendars in some way, shape, or form. And so for you to send them something is a very helpful placeholder. You may have to ask for that email, or in fact, you will likely have to ask for that email.
Mhm. Yeah. And when you do a connection on LinkedIn, you can put a note in, right? If you press connect, click on connect, there's going to be an option that says like leave a note with your connection request. And that's a great place to put this first message, right? And then once they respond, then you can get their personal email and say, as Matt just talked about. But yeah, you can also do that. Another one, and Matt, you mentioned this briefly, but I think the connection might have been a little broken just at that moment. Anna is asking, what type of LinkedIn premium should a job seeker go for if you're not a business owner? Do you have any recommendations there to help with networking?
Yeah, I think it is called premium business, which is
Mm,
maybe why you're asking the question in that way.
uh-huh.
But you basically want the lowest tier that allows you unlimited profile views. They change it every 6 months, so if this recording lives somewhere, it'll be different next time you look at it. But um, I think right now it's called premium business, and it's like $35 a month or something.
Great. Yeah, nice. The idea being you want to be able to see an unlimited number of profiles so that you can really search and make that list of 25 every week, 2 weeks, whatever your goals are.
Yeah,
Nice,
and don't
nice.
get stuck on 25. Like if you're unemployed, do 250, right? This
Right,
is
like
your
go
new
for it.
job.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Go full on for sure, for sure. Um, we have 2 more minutes, but let's try to get a few more questions in before we wrap. Monica asks, what about photos on LinkedIn? Should you put professional or better to or better no profile photo as I can use? Let me rephrase that just to make sure that I'm understanding. It's really like, what kind of photo do you recommend putting on LinkedIn uh, for this kind of thing?
Yeah. So mine is like very professional headshotty. That's not necessary. That was like I was working at a company where they did that one day and okay. Um, I would say you don't want to have like a photo at a wedding where people are cropped out and there's an arm around your shoulder and you want it to
Yeah.
look intentional. Um, the Muse actually has, if you look at like the Muse employees page, they have really great use of different textures. So they'll be in front of like a shingled wall or like bricks or rock or out in nature in some way. There are a lot of really great articles out there on how to take a professional headshot with a smartphone. So if you
Mm,
have that, you don't need to go and pay hundreds of dollars for actual headshots. You just want something that looks intentional, where your face is well lit, and that's pretty much it. I'd say 20 years ago, the answer might have been you want the suit and tie thing. Now, I really don't think that's the case. As long as you look intentional, put together, and like you went out of your way to shoot that photo for LinkedIn, that should put you in a pretty good spot.
yeah, nice. Yeah. Um, Krista asks, any thoughts on following up verbiage with a recruiter who accepted your invite to connect? and they're the hiring contact, like how do you suggest reaching out specifically to recruiters in this circumstance?
Yeah, so with that, you're really just looking for information. So you want to understand a little bit more about the role from their perspective. You want to understand the process, timelines, and I would communicate all of that in an email. So or whatever your channel is. So the recruiter, they're very invested in finding someone good to fill that role. The biggest pain for a recruiter is when you've gone all the way through the process with someone, you extend an offer, and then they don't accept it.
Mm,
So most recruiters are going to be fairly well incentivized to get a small group of high quality candidates and push them over to the hiring manager and their team. And the more you can sort of put yourself in those shoes, the better. Yeah,
mhm,
that recruiter is not going to have, or likely not going to have, detailed on the ground stuff about the role, but then you could maybe daisy chain over to someone who does. So
mhm.
anything's better than nothing. You get on, ask questions that aren't available online, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, great. I love that. We have time for one more question, if you don't mind staying on an extra minute, Matt, because there's so many coming in.
Of
And I
course.
think that this one's important just because I think this is like, it's like for me, it's a big yes, but um, Anita asks, so are you saying to connect with people at companies you are applying to, regardless of whether you know them or not?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think of it this way: you don't know them yet.
I like
Um,
that.
what what I find is sometimes a challenge is, there's a job, it's perfect for you, it's been up for 3 weeks, maybe you don't have time to like do this whole process. Yeah, that, I understand. Like, apply. You got to put your hat in the ring. But if it's a company or a role where there are going to be more jobs in the future, right? Because it's a 2,000 person company or whatever, I would get to know the people on the team that you want to work on, especially if
Mhm,
it's sales, marketing, business development, engineering, account management, something where it really is like teams of people. There will be openings. And so
mhm.
if you're in their ecosystem, you're in their environment, that puts you in a good shape. Um, and yeah, you'd be reaching out to people who don't know you from a random stranger on the sidewalk yet, right? And that's
Yet,
why
I love
it's up
that.
to you to drive that conversation.
Yeah, and I think, on the receiving end of LinkedIn requests like this for the Muse, I've definitely had people who've reached out to me asking for information about the Muse and getting to know it, and that when a new role months later pops up at the Muse and they reach out to me again, I kinda already feel like I know them because we've had an interaction, and I'm also much more likely to, do something about it for them and really help them out because there's that consistency, right? So to your point, Matt, it's like there might be one role today, but if there's a potential role in the future, doing that work today is really gonna, help you out in the long term in that job search.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll add in as well that the Muse had a great article a couple months ago that was something like 80% of professional jobs are filled through networking. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people probably read that and went, "Well, I don't have a network, I'm screwed." Everything we talked about today and any other tips you can find, some of the other things in the chat here, all of that is meant to just democratize this whole process for you, right? This
Mhm.
this is accessible to anyone. It may not be comfortable initially, uh, but it is straightforward and very doable, and it's accessible to you. This is
Mhm.
not, the fortress of the well-connected elite or anything like that. This LinkedIn has totally changed the game and democratized this whole thing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Hopefully that inspires you guys to get set up, make that spreadsheet for yourself, create those achievable goals so that you're not overwhelming yourself and setting yourself up for failure. And yeah, making some headway there. Matt, thank you so much for sharing this with everyone today. Everyone, thank you so much for your questions, for tuning in, for listening, for taking these steps for yourself. So Matt, again, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for taking time out of your whatever time of day it is for you. And good luck.
Yeah, good luck, everyone. We'll see you next month. Thanks so much for tuning in.